Hello everyone, I'm the Tactical Gardener, and today we are going to be building some mushroom beds. The thing you're going to need to build your mushroom grow bed is grain spawn, just like this. This right here happens to be the Mission Myco wine cap grain spawn. I chose the wine cap for the mushroom to put out here in the garden because wine caps love growing in wood chips. They thrive in an environment like this garden when it's full of wood chips and this is mixed in and we use the wood chips as a substrate. Why do I choose to use wine cap from Mission Myco? Well, that's easy because Mission Myco, it's the only grain spawn I use. I won't use anybody else's stuff, mainly because Mission Myco makes the best grain spawn there is. Hands down, no questions asked, buy it at missionmyco.com.
Like, is this different?
Oh, I'm out.
I'm trying to help you. You're being ridiculous.
Tactical channel. So you literally have to practice your reload drills. Got him. Hunting for slugs. Slugs are in the garden. I gotta get, like, this is the B-roll. Enough of that. Oh, hey, murder cat. Luna, ow, 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 ow. God, ah! Murder cat, what are you doing out here, murder cat? Hey, I found you out in the garden. What are you doing today? You just taking a stroll? Oh, Sam. Stoner dog. You can't be in here, stoner dog. Murder cat doesn't like that. Murder cat's gonna f you up. Look, they're on the hunt. Hunting. Oh, did you get your hunting interrupted? Look at this giant zucchini that I grew out here. It is really big. Kind of what I was thinking. But anyways, like and subscribe. Follow for more videos. Hello again, everyone. It's the Tactical Gardener. For this week's video, what are we going to be doing? We are going to transform this garden you see here into an even better garden that not only does it grow fruit and vegetables and flowers, but it'll also grow mushrooms. Just take a look at this fly through as we fly around the garden and see what we have going on. You can see inside of the garden, we have 4 raised garden beds with all the fruit and the vegetables and flowers growing in it. But we also have walking paths in the middle. The walking paths, you can see they're overgrown with weeds and other plants that we don't necessarily want in our garden because they're not doing anything for us as far as growing edible produce like fruit and vegetables. Much like this zucchini right here. This grew in the garden, but we'd also like to maximize the space that's wasted on walking paths by putting in mushroom grow beds where we can grow fresh wine cap mushrooms using grain spawn from Mission Myco, the greatest grain spawn and mushroom company there is. Now you might ask yourself, Tactical Gardener, how are we going to do this? Well, that's very easy. It's going to be a few simple steps. To start, we are going to trim and get rid of all of these weeds that are growing on the ground. We're going to get rid of them. We're going to trim it down. And then second, we are going to put down a weed barrier, and I will walk you through the whole process of putting this weed barrier down, as well as selecting the correct material for a weed barrier. After that, once we have that weed barrier down, we're going to cover the ground in wood chips mixed in with our Mission Myco grain spawn. We're going to build up that wood chip layer because of the grain spawn for wine cap mushrooms, the particular ones we're using. It's a wood loving one. So it breaks down those wood chips and decomposes them to give nutrients to the mycelium. So that way it can fruit into edible mushroom bodies that we will later, in a few months when they start growing, utilize to make delicious culinary dishes and save us a trip to the grocery store. So now, with our intro out of the way, telling you what we are going to do today, we are going to get started by first weed trimming and clearing this whole way up. So follow along, folks, as we transform this garden into a heavenly place that is free of weeds and the ultimate wine cap mushroom growing garden bed. So now, folks, how are we going to get all of these weeds out of here? Well, there's a few different ways. One way is we can sit here and we can pull every weed out or all the blades of grass like I'm about to do now. Just pick it up, grab it, move it. But as you can see, we have a big garden and this is going to take a long time. And also you might get a weed, oh, like that, that's stuck. So you'd have to pull out your knife and dig it out. Who wants to do that with the Hori tool? You'll be here all day doing that as well. And we just continue to pull grass and pull grass. And eventually we'll get done with this. It works. It really does. But the issue is we're going to be here all day and all night just pulling grass out of the ground. So to fix this and make it go so much faster, we are going to use a magical tool I like using to clear up large areas of grass like this. And that tool would be the string trimmer. Now, before we can start using a string trimmer, also known as a weed eater or a weed whacker, probably many other names, you're going to need some safety gear like iPro, which I happen to have in my gun belt right here. You're also going to need, because I'm using a gas string trimmer, you're going to need earplugs. I have earplugs right here as well. This will keep us safe. Now watch as I get rid of all of these weeds. Now, everyone, we're done with string trimming. So what we got to do next is there's a bunch of places like this where we have a cool flower growing, right? But I don't want to get the string trimmer in here, or you don't want to get the string trimmer in there, because when you hit the little vines for the flowers, it will kill this plant. So there's some spots where you have to do it with your hands. Maybe you also have to use your Hori tool and you dig the stuff out. That's what we're going to do right now. Watch. This is how it's done. Oh yeah, pull it out. Not too hard. Make sure you're not pulling out any of the flowers. And then we have this cardboard that we had put down earlier to try to deter some of the weeds, but we hadn't put any of the sawdust on yet. The sawdust is what you need on top of this cardboard to keep the weeds away. Okay, see, you got to be careful. You don't want to pull that out. And then we also have to fix our planter bricks. Or not planter bricks. No, there's another one. Here we go. We also have to get these edging bricks put back in around to keep our flowers looking cool. You just got to keep on at it. Keep on digging the stuff out. Now we have another clematis in the garden that I'll show you guys that we're going to have to do the same thing to. That one still has flowers on it. So you'll be able to see that one in its full flowering glory. The cool thing about these clematises is they keep coming back every year, growing in vines and getting thicker and thicker. They look really cool. You should get a clematis. Now everyone, here we have another clematis. It's growing up. And again, the same thing. We don't want to string trim along here and end up hitting the stock of this vining clematis flower, and then end up killing these really cool purple flowers out here. Now, this plant, once you plant it, if you take care of it, it keeps coming back every year and it keeps regrowing, and the vines keep getting longer. So hopefully someday, in a couple of years, this will grow all the way around the garden and provide a nice screen, so that way the neighbors can't see in and then start getting nosy and wonder what we're growing, and then come over and ask, like, hey, let me get some cucumbers from you. We don't want to do that, because these are our cucumbers that we work hard for so that we can sustain ourselves. So let's get started cleaning out these here weeds from this clematis to give it a little more space to breathe. You don't want to choke it out. You can use the hori tool like this to kind of dig, get some of these roots out, but be careful that you don't go too deep and kill your clematis roots. Oh, there we go. I'm getting a little low. Be careful. Now that we're done here, it's time to move on to our sunflowers. This is the same thing. We didn't want to string trim around those and cut them down. So let's get those sunflowers cleaned up. Oh, look at that. Found this honeybee out here just doing his thing, gathering up pollen. Oh, a little close. Got him nervous, spooked him. We'll let him go. We like the bees. Now, folks, we are done getting rid of all of these weeds here, getting them trimmed down to a height that'll be easy to install our weed barrier. Now, before we get into the weed barrier criteria and the selection of our weed barrier that we're going to put down here on the ground to stop these weeds, let's get cleaned up, because we are pretty sweaty right now. That's cold. All right, folks, we're back at it after our cold plunge on this hot summer day, getting ready to install our mushroom grow beds. Now, the first thing we're going to need to do after we got them weeds cleaned out that we spent all afternoon doing is we're going to pick our weed barrier material. Now, we could go to the store and we could buy a sheet of plastic weed barrier or felt weed barrier, whatever they're made out of. But we don't want to do that. Why don't we want to do that? Well, one, it's not a permanent solution, contrary to popular belief. It will still get weeds up. Yeah, it'll last maybe a year or two longer than cardboard, but at the same time, eventually the weeds don't grow through it, but they grow on top of it and it breaks down. And again, you're putting sheets of plastic on the ground to try to stop weed, and that's breaking down over time into microplastics going in your food. Who knows what other chemicals leach off that stuff? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I just hear all kinds of bad stuff on the news about plastics leaching chemicals into our food, causing all kind of health problems. So what are we going to use instead? We are going to use cardboard. And why are we going to use cardboard? Because one, it's free, and two, this cardboard, we're going to recycle it back into the earth, into carbon that the mushrooms and plants are going to eat and break down. Because much like in nature, where trees die and decompose and provide food to the fungus and the myceliums growing in the dirt and basically decompose into more topsoil so more plants can grow, cardboard is much the same. And why is that? Because cardboard is made out of trees. Now, we're going to use this cardboard, but before we get started on the cardboard we're going to pick, we don't want to use this kind of cardboard. Not that it's this brand or this brand. We just don't want to use this kind because it's got this waxy coating. You don't want to use a cardboard with this waxy ink coating on it because, well, it's full of ink and waxy stuff, and it doesn't break down because it's made to not break down over time with this coating. So we're going to get rid of these, so we won't even think about them no more. What we want to use is we want to use this kind of corrugated cardboard here. That comes from Amazon or wherever you happen to get this kind of cardboard from. It's got a little ink on it here, but this is okay because this isn't that waxy coated ink. This is just regular ink. If it's got a waxy coating, don't use it. Now, you might ask, where do I get all this cardboard? Well, if you're like probably most households, you get tons of Amazon packages and other stuff shipped to your house because you don't want to go to the store. So you can use those boxes. Similar to this one. This one came through the mail. You can see a mailing label. Or let's say you just had some neighbors that moved in next door and they got a ton of boxes like this one. You can go borrow this kind of box from your neighbor. Or maybe you just moved and you have a ton of these. Or maybe you just have a ton of cardboard. Just get some cardboard because that's what we're going to use. Now, we want to take this cardboard and we need to get it ready to go. So what's the first thing we need to do? We need to take all of this tape off. There's tape that holds it together. It's plastic. It doesn't break down. Get rid of the tape. So how do we do that? Just like this. Oh, gone. Get rid of that one. Oh, look at that, folks. We have a little label on here. Get rid of them labels too. We don't want those. This one's ready. All that tape is gone. Ready to go. So now let's start on the next one. This tape's a little bit better. It's kind of made up of paper stuff, but inside this paper tape, there's little plastic threads. So let's try to pull that tape off because, I mean, we're on a roll removing tape. So why not remove it now so we don't have these plastic threads getting stuck in worm noses, kind of like a straw. You don't want to use plastic straws because they'll get stuck in a turtle nose. So why would you want to use this plastic string or leave this plastic string on here that's inside the tape? Because that might choke a worm. And that worm will die because he just got choked out by this string that he ingested or got wrapped around the worm neck and choked him to death. Who knows? We just don't want it in there. So we'll take that off. Oh, then we get to the big one. Look at this. You don't want this tape. There's a ton of tape on here. So much tape. Let's get it all off so we can get started laying these out in the garden bed. All right, folks, we are done. We got all this cardboard tape removed. You can see it right here. That's a lot of tape. Now that we're done removing all the tape from the cardboard, let's head down to the garden and start laying these out. As you can see, we have all of our cardboard already de-taped, and we have our garden bed free and clear of weeds. So now we need to start moving forward and putting down this cardboard to act as a weed barrier. We want to make sure we don't leave any gaps because where there's a gap, the weeds are going to find that gap and exploit it and start growing up through it. So we could take this cardboard and we could lay it out right in the middle like that. And that might work. Like this could work for a lot of people. This is all you really have to do. But the problem is we're going to have weeds exploding up through these side parts right here because why? Well, there's a gap. So to get rid of that gap, we're just going to double this cardboard up. And by the way, when we double the cardboard up like this, oh, let's get rid of that rock. And guess what, folks? Rocks don't really grow plants, so we're just going to chuck this out of the garden. Just like that. Now, we'll take another piece, we cover it. Boom. And then we make sure we have our cardboard overlapping, like so. Look at that. That's some wonderful overlapping to keep the weeds from sprouting up through the middle. It also gives us these little side edges to hold our wood chips from escaping, which they wouldn't have escaped anyways because the boards are here. But this will keep all the weeds from growing up that crack because there's no more dirt exposed cracks. So let's keep working forward, putting down more. There you go, go. I'm gonna start squirt gunning ya. Sam, get out a shot. There we go. Sometimes you gotta clear the dogs out. Magical. This is coming along wonderfully. Keep moving forward. Now, as you're going through the garden, when you see these other weeds in the beds, you can pluck them out as well. Now, as we get up to intersections like this, you want to make sure you have good cross coverage so that all your sectors are covered and we don't have weeds sneaking in between gaps in the cardboard. Our bed is starting to look really good. Cross coverage extends to both sides of the intersection. Oh, lost our zucchini. What do we have here? A giant rock. Make sure you move anything that's in the way. Oh boy. This is a big one. Now, areas like this where we have plants, this one happens to be a sunflower. It could be any type of plant that's growing that you don't want to chop down with the weeds. So you're gonna have to leave it. But as you can see, we have weeds growing up around it, like these guys that we still need to block. So you might have to modify your cardboard or find a piece of cardboard that fits exactly where you want it. Just like this. Oh, it doesn't quite fit. Let's modify it. That works pretty good. Oh, there's gonna be a lot of trips. All right, everyone, as you can see, we have all the cardboard right here laid out. It's covering everywhere so no weeds can get through. And we've already started laying out wood chips. So we have to keep laying out wood chips until we have a layer of wood chips covering the bottom. You know, maybe an inch, maybe 2 inches thick. It's all up to you, however many wood chips you want to do. The more, the better. But for right now, we're just going to put down our initial 1-inch layer of wood chips. I got another bucket right here. This is going to take a really long time though, doing this one bucket at a time like I've been, because that's kind of slow. If you have, you know, just your 5-gallon bucket and you continue to dump slowly, you're going to be here all day. So let's try to speed this up a little bit and maybe use something new. I don't know. Let's go see what I can find. So we made a little more progress here now that we have the wheelbarrow. It definitely moves a lot more wood chips than the bucket does. But we have to cover all of this tonight to get our initial layer down. So that way, tomorrow, first thing in the morning, we can go start picking up more wood chips to lay in here, because not everyone wants to stay open to make garden beds all night. So we're going to have to pick that up in the morning. But in order to get this done before the end of the day, we're going to need to make it rain. Oh, snap. Look at that. cut. All right, folks, as you can see, it's the next day. The landscaping supply store was open. We were able to get more wood chips, and we finished putting wood chips everywhere in the garden. Everywhere is covered on all of the walking paths with cardboard and wood chips, all approximately a good 4 inches thick. That should be more than enough. Now, the next step we're going to do is we're going to feed the goats this little corn I grew that didn't grow big enough for me to eat, but it's plenty big for the goats to eat. So let's let the goats start eating this corn. They'll love it, I promise. Now, everyone, that we have finished feeding the goats, it is time to start spreading these two bags, these two 5-pound bags of Mission Myco wine cap mushroom grain spawn in amongst our elegant looking garden on these wood chips that we tirelessly spent all day spreading into a nice 4 to 5 inch layer on all the walking paths. So what we are going to do next is we are going to spread these Mission Myco wine cap mushroom grain spawn bags evenly amongst all these wood chips. For a garden this size, I recommend using 2 bags of Mission Myco wine cap grain spawn in the 5-pound variety. Mission Myco also sells 1-pound inoculated grain spawn bags if you have a smaller garden that is this size. We will come back to this smaller garden. I will show you how to inoculate it. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to mix and knead these bags of mushroom grain spawn so that it's individual mushroom grains. You don't have to be gentle. Just be careful that you don't break this bag open and prematurely dump your grain spawn on the ground. That would be a waste. Again, watch as the Mission Myco grain spawn bags are well sealed, so a slight fall like that won't hurt it. And now that the bags are kneaded, you need to open them with a small slit in the corner. You can use a scissors or a knife. And now we will begin spreading them by gently shaking out grain in a nice even pattern everywhere we want the mushrooms to grow. Follow along. A garden bed this size is perfect for the 1-pound Mission Myco wine cap grain spawn bag. Grain is spread very similar to the bigger bags. And now that our grain spawn is spread, let's spread the last layer of wood chips. Now you might be saying, but Tactical Gardener, I don't have a tractor. Well, that is fine because a wheelbarrow also works good. Where's my hoe? Time to hoe this garden out. Now, if you use the tractor to spread your wood chips, you're going to need to further spread them because the tractor just dumped them in a pile. So knock all them high spots down and even the garden out into that layer of wood chips, grain spawn, wood chips. The final step after all of this is done is to water your garden like you would usually do and let the mushrooms grow. We did plant these a little bit late in the year. It is now August, so it is a little bit late in the season. We may get some mushrooms this fall, we may not, but for sure in the springtime, after these mushrooms have had all winter, or this mycelium has had all winter to continue to grow and spread its little mycelium fingers throughout the wood chips and break down and decompose the wood chips in the spring, we'll be greeted with a plentiful bounty of wine cap mushrooms. Stay tuned for next year when I update you on the massive amount of harvest that's going to happen in this garden. But finally, let us water everywhere. No, there's not a slug at all. I haven't seen anything.